Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Job, the 20th chapter. Then answered Zophar the Neamathite and said, Therefore do my thoughts cause me to answer, and for this I make haste. He said in NLT, I must reply because I am greatly disturbed. NIV, my troubled thoughts prompt me to answer because I am greatly disturbed. Basically, he's saying I couldn't just sit back and keep listening to this. I had to say something. I have heard the check of my reproach, and the spirit of my understanding causeth me to answer. And NKJV, I have heard the rebuke that reproaches me, and the spirit of my understanding causes me to answer. Meaning to respond to what Job was saying. Knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed on earth? So now he's about to drop some quote unquote wisdom on him, right? On Job. At least that's his thought. He's saying I have to respond to this. And similar to what we read in chapter 18, a lot of these things that Job's friend is saying here concerning the wicked is directly, right, for the most part, applicable to Esau Edom, which is a personification of the wicked. So as we're here, his friend speaks about, speaking to Job, kind of like telling him the same thing that Job already knows, that this was what happens to the wicked. They don't triumph for long. They lose what they've gained. Once again, this is, it's like saying when you, when you add two things, you get what shit, hold on. When you add, two apples and another two apples, you get a total of 4, right? It doesn't matter what time period that happens. Anybody that adds 2 apples to another 2 apples is always going to get 4. So when he says this here, we now see Esau coming on the scene as the wicked, and we see how, okay, these verses here can apply to him, because this is like a general statement about the wicked. It's like the Lord saying, all they that hate me love death. It doesn't matter what generation you come on the scene. If you fit that role, right, if the shoe fits, you're going to have to wear it. So it says here, knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed upon the earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment? Now, at the same token, though, his friends saying this is sort of like subliminally trying to condemn Job, right? Like, you speaking all this, but look at you, right? Look at what you're going through. Look at your triumphing was short, right? Your success was cut short by God. And this is knowledge that has been of old. We all know what happens to those that are hypocrites. We all know that what happens to those that live wickedly before the Lord, that do wickedly before the Lord. They can't escape that judgment. And when that judgment befalls them, that bears witness to who they are and what they've done. Okay? So it says, the triumphing, right, of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment. Though his excellency mount up to the heavens, and his head reach onto the clouds, right? So no matter how high they go, yet he shall perish forever like his own dung, right? So eventually they're gonna be brought low, and they're gonna perish. Okay, they're gonna cease from being on the earth, just like their own dung. They which have seen him shall say, where is he? And this eventually is gonna happen to Esau, right? For being the wicked. He is also going to perish like his own dung. And there's going to come a point in time in the future where people are going to turn around and they're not going to see Edomites. He shall fly away as a dream, right? Just like when you have a dream, it feels real. But when you wake up, that's it. Like eventually, as more and more time passes, it fades and fades and fades and fades and fades, and it becomes harder and harder to remember. And shall not be found. Yea, he shall be chased away as a vision of the night. So they're going to just, eventually, poof. The eye also which saw him shall see him no more, neither shall his place any more behold him. Right? So the eye which saw him, the wicked that is, is no more going to see him. Why? It's not that the eye is going to stop looking, but the wicked is going to be taken from off the earth. Eventually, they're going to cease to exist. The Lord is going to do away with them. Same case with Esau. And neither shall his place behold him anymore, right? His habitation, his dwelling is not, he's not going to be there anymore. His children shall seek to please the poor, and his hands shall restore their goods. I'll read this in another translation, right? It says, in the NKJV, his children will seek the favor of the poor, and his hands will restore his wealth, right? In NIV, it says, his children must make amends to the poor. His own hands must give back his wealth. Because what? They were ill-gotten gains. And prophetically speaking, the poor ultimately would represent us. Okay? Like in terms of restoring back to the poor. You know, when you look in prophecy, oftentimes the scriptures talk about the meek when it refers to like a nation of people or the poor. Holistically, right? Once again, context matters. But there are times when that's referring to Israel. Okay, and then let's say like the rich referring to Esau. But here when it says shall seek favor from the poor, the part where it mentions his hands restoring his goods, okay, he's going to have to restore that to us. Okay. Dealing with Esau, that is. His bones are full of the sin of his youth, which shall lie down with him in the dust. So your bones, which are like your foundational structure, that part lasts, right? Even after your flesh decays. As it says, it's full of the sin of his youth. So it's part of him, right? And shall lie down with him in the dust. He grew up with it, and he's gonna die with it. It's just a part of his nature. Though wickedness be sweet in his mouth, though he hide it under his tongue. So he enjoys wickedness, right? It's like a sweetness, like a sweet taste in his mouth, even though he hides it under his tongue, to where that's like giving off the appearance as though they aren't wicked. They cover it up. Though he spare it and forsake it not, but keep it still within his mouth. So he makes it seem like it, he's not wicked, right? That he's not about that life, but it's still within his mouth. It's still in him. And you see that often with Esau Edom. That's him portraying himself as harmless, but he's really a demon, right? I forgot. I think in Psalms it mentions, was it 50 or 55 or 50 and 5? It says, his words were smoother than butter, yet war was in his heart. Verse 14, yet his meat in his bowels is turned, right? The food in his stomach it ain't sitting right. It is the gall of asps within him. So it says here, but suddenly the food in their bellies turns sour, NLT, a poisonous venom in their stomach, right? That meaning that it's not going to sit right with them. All the things they've consumed, the riches and all that they've acquired, eventually is going to start to come back up out of them. They're going to have to give it up. He hath swallowed down riches, it's metaphorically speaking, right? He didn't just go and grab gold and silver and just start swallowing it. But it means that they took it, right? They consumed it. They made it theirs. And he shall vomit them up again. They got to give it back up. So guess what? To all these elites, all the ill-gotten gains and the riches they got to give that all back up. God shall cast them out of his belly. He shall suck the poison of asps. The viper's tongue shall slay him. Now, sucking the poison of asps doesn't mean that he's going to go and grab a wild snake and just start sucking its poison. What it means is that by the actions and the wicked ways that he does, he's going to, in doing so, it's symbolic of him consuming poison, okay? Because eventually it's going to have that killer effect on him. As it says, the viper's tongue shall slay him. He shall not see the rivers, the floods, the brooks of honey and butter. And this is symbolic of the luxuries, right? He's no longer going to get to enjoy those luxuries, right? The as it says, NLT, they will never again enjoy streams of olive oil, of rivers of milk and honey. So the good times are over. That which he labored for shall he restore, and shall not swallow it down. See, so all the things that they've, because their labor would be in wickedness, right? but they're not going to maintain that. They're not going to keep that. So you could say all their so-called hard work, like all the things Esau did, setting up this event, doing this, moving over here, creating that, setting all that up. He's not, as it says, he's not going to swallow it down. He's not going to get to keep all that. According to his substance shall the restitution be, meaning they're going to return everything that they've taken. Because it was either through deceit, forcefully. Look at what they're doing to Venezuela, right? As an example, they're taking their shit. Okay, their oil, and they've done that to many places with resources where they just went up in there and took it. Well, they're gonna have to restore all that. But that's just an example, right? It says, according to his substance shall the restitution be, and he shall not rejoice therein. They're not going to have the satisfaction of accomplishing what it is that they seek through their wicked or ill-gotten gains. Because he hath oppressed and hath forsaken the poor, because he hath violently taken away an house which he builded not, right? Those are the deeds of the wicked. They go and they take and they oppress and they take away that which is not theirs, that which belongs to another. Once again, you want to see an example of this? Look at the characteristics of Esau, Edom, in this world today, right? As they move by Babylon, and look at the things it does that as a nation to other nations, and you'll see. Surely he shall not feel quietness, which is that peace, in his belly. He shall not save of that which he desired. See. So the Lord isn't going to allow them to just do all this wickedness and then get away with it and just be comfortable and be at peace. NIV, surely he will have no respite from his craving. He cannot save himself by his treasure, right? He shall not save of that which he desired. So the things he desired, which he acquired through evil means, he's not going to be able to keep. There shall none of his meat be left. Therefore shall no man look for his goods. So he's going to have nothing left. NLT, nothing is left after they finish gorging themselves. Therefore, their prosperity will not endure. Right? NIV, nothing is left for him to devour. His prosperity will not endure. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Right? And we often, quote this precept a lot, but you can see how well it applies, right, to the wicked. I.e. also to Esau, Edom, right? You can see how well that applies, or at least according to the prophecies that are written of what's going to happen to him, how that's going to, take place, right? In the fullness of his sufficiency, right? So at the point where he is, feeling like he's about to accomplish the things that he has worked so hard for, even though it was through wicked means, he shall be in straits, right? In difficulties and hard times. Shit going to start going wrong. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. Now, the word wicked here, it's not talking about like somebody that's evil, right? Aimal in the Hebrew, it says a laborer, okay, or a sufferer. And that's I don't know why it took me all the way back to the start, but that applies to these other nations, okay, and also to Israelites, right, to Jake, which have had to suffer or labor under or for the wicked. And so eventually they're all going to turn on him. Okay, they want an exact judgment. They want retribution. And as it says, every hand of the wicked shall come upon him when he is about to fill his belly. So when he's about to accomplish, right, the things that he so desires, right, that's like preparing his meal and he's about to, to indulge in that, which today, right, Esau filling his belly would be accomplishing his new world order. But the Lord is not going to have that happen. As it says, God shall cast the fury of his, because a part of his plans to do so is triggering this world war. But he doesn't realize that that's going to actually, in his plan to accomplish a new world, he is going to be ending his world. Right? So God shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. So in the process of trying to accomplish this, this agenda of his, the Most High is going to cast that wrath by form of fire, destruction, chaos, missiles upon him. He shall flee from the iron weapon, which are the missiles. And the bow, once again, applying to Esau, right? That's the missiles. And the bow of steel shall strike him through. Okay, which that would represent in our time the silos, right? Of which, like a bow, you have arrows that are shot from it, and the silos of the missiles, you have missiles that are shot from it, and they're gonna strike him through. Okay, and what that looks like is they're gonna destroy his empire, his system. Okay, certain habitations and dwelling places of theirs, and even some of them will be destroyed in it. Okay, but we know ultimately their elites, right? The top ones are gonna be preserved. It is drawn and cometh out of the body. So now this is a visual of somebody who was actually struck with arrows. Okay, and as it says, it is drawn, like pulling it out of their body. Yea, the glittering sword cometh out of his gal. Terrors are upon him, because now things are going south, right? Now judgment is coming upon him, and now he's afraid. It says, NLT, the arrow is pulled from their back, and the arrowhead glistens with blood. The terrors of death are upon them. And that ain't a good feeling now, is it? Verse 26, all darkness shall be hid in his secret places. The secret places are the places of their treasures, right? That they're hidden treasures. And that signifies them losing it. Because if your treasures are cast into darkness, you're not getting that back. A fire not blown shall consume him. Now, what is a fire not blown? When you try to start that's your unconventional fire, right? Which is artificial fire in this case. Fire from God, right, via missiles, and also from the chariots too, right? But when you start a fire, you have to blow it. You have to blow air on it to help it catch fire, right? You do the sparks, you see the smoke, and then you add that air, and then it catches fire. But this is talking about a fire that's not blown, that you don't blow any air on it, and yet it's going to be able to consume or destroy him. And that's how we know, right, that prophetically speaking, of course, this is referring to the nuclear missiles, because those are going to emit very, very hot fire. But this isn't a fire that you start off with blowing air on it, to have it start. It shall go ill with him that is left in his tabernacle. See, so all those of them that are left, it's not going to be good for them either. Right? They're not going, those that are left after the destruction are going to be preserved for captivity. And after the captivity, their whole house is going to get Obadiah 1:18. The increase of his house shall depart, see, and his goods shall flow away in the day of his wrath, in the day of the wrath of the Lord. So generally speaking, this would happen to the wicked, right? The wicked would be cut off, right? That's what Job's friend is saying. Like the wicked would not enjoy prosperity. All the things that they have labored for, the Lord will exact from them. And we see now in modern times how Esau, Edom, being the wicked, is fitting all of these things that are said, and how prophecy holds or validate these words against him, against Esau. Okay, that's why I'm, you're able to make these comparisons. You're able to use these precepts, to show that, right? So as it says, the increase of his house shall depart. All right, meaning that they're not going to have any. The increase of your house is like when you have descendants and children and so on, right? If they depart, that means they're no more. And because his whole house is going to be gathered and dealt with, just to make it PG-13. And his goods shall flow away in the day of his wrath. So in the day of the wrath of the Lord, they're going to lose all their goods. They're not going to have anything, okay, except chains and shackles on them. This is the portion of a wicked man, and the heritage appointed unto him by God. See? So it's only fitting that the one classified as the wicked would see the same fate, right? Would see this portion, would see this fate come upon them. Okay, that is what they have to inherit by God. And that brings us to the end of the book of Job, the 20th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak, Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.